A poor black waitress helped a billionaire in the snow. The next morning, fired and shattered, she never expected her kindness to return with such devastating force. Alyssa Moore was let go in front of a silent, staring lunch crowd for being 10 minutes late, a consequence of the same storm. Standing stunned on the sidewalk, jobless with rent due, she didn't see the familiar black SUV idling across the street. Inside, Jasper Hamilton watched her leave. He was the billionaire she'd dug out of the snow the night before, and he'd just witnessed everything. When he stepped through the restaurant doors minutes later, an icy calm settled over the room. The manager's smug satisfaction vanished. Every cruel word he'd used to fire Alyssa was about to be unraveled, and his world was going to change instead. Welcome to a world where stories breathe. As you settle in, I wonder, where are you watching from tonight? By the glow of the Christmas tree, perhaps? If these tales find a home with you, consider subscribing. It's the most heartfelt gift a storyteller could receive this season. The snow had been falling since mid-afternoon, the thick, quiet kind that swallowed sound and made the city feel smaller than it was. By the time Bistro Lumiere finally locked its doors, the streets were coated in a deep, unbroken white, and the wind cut straight through fabric like it had a purpose. Alyssa Moore pulled her thin jacket tighter as she stepped outside, the restaurant's warm glow vanishing behind her. 28 years old, exhausted and underpaid, she felt every year of it in her bones. The restaurant sat in a cruel slice of geography, nestled near a downtown strip of expensive offices and glass towers. It was a place where people ordered wine that cost more than her rent and never quite looked their servers in the eye. Tonight had been rougher than most. A private event for some tech firm had run late, the tips were embarrassingly thin, and her manager, Gary, had pulled her aside at clock out. "Remember, Alyssa," he'd said, not unkindly, but with the sterile finality of a judge. "Lateness means termination. No excuses, no stories. The owners are cracking down." The words were a cold stone in her stomach. The bus schedule was a fragile lifeline in this weather. She started the trudge toward her stop, her second-hand boots crunching against the fresh powder, each step a minor battle. Her mind replayed the evening, the snapped fingers, the corrected pronunciations of the French menu from men who didn't speak French, the hollow feeling of being part of the scenery. The city around her was a study in contrasts, the soft, forgiving blanket of snow over the hard, indifferent concrete. That's when she saw it. Ahead, a black luxury SUV sat angled at the curb, half buried, its sleek lines rendered helpless. Its hazard lights blinked a weak, rhythmic amber through the curtain of snow. A man stood beside the driver's door, phone pressed to his ear, his other hand gesturing in sharp, futile arcs. Even from 20 feet away, frustration was etched in the line of his shoulders. Alyssa slowed. Don't stop. Everyone knows that. The city's first rule, learned through 1,000 cautious headlines and maternal warnings. It was late, brutally cold, and she was a woman alone. But then the wind gusted, needling through her layers, and she saw the details. His hands were bare, clenched and red against the dark paint of the car. His breath plumed in ragged, sharp bursts. Whatever call he was on clearly wasn't helping. She hesitated, the war between instinct and compassion lasting only 3 heartbeats. Her feet carried her forward before her mind could finalize the verdict. "You okay?" she asked, raising her voice to be heard over the wind's moan. The man turned, surprised. He looked to be in his mid-30s with a sharp, intelligent face currently pinched with cold. He was dressed in a beautiful charcoal wool coat that spoke of boardrooms, not blizzards. "I'm comprehensively stuck," he admitted, lowering the phone. The screen showed a disconnected call. "Tires won't grip. Ice underneath. Roadside assistant says it'll be hours due to the storm. Alyssa glanced down the deserted street. Empty. The snow was only getting heavier. You'll freeze waiting out here, or get hit by a plow. He gave a humorless, clouded smile. That seems to be the emerging consensus. She exhaled, a long stream of white in the dark air. Her bus was likely a fantasy now anyway. There's a garage behind the restaurant. It's not fancy, but it's locked, warm, and I have the code. You can wait there. I've got an extra scarf in my bag. He studied her for a moment, not with suspicion, but with a frank, assessing curiosity, as if she were an unexpected and intriguing equation. Then he nodded. I'd appreciate that. Truly. The garage was a dim, concrete cave, smelling of old oil and damp, but it was gloriously still and shielded from the wind. She punched in the code, the green light flashing, and led him inside. Wordlessly, she dug into her oversized tote and pulled out a long, knitted scarf, a thrift store find, but clean and warm. She handed it to him. "Thank you," he said, wrapping it around his neck with a small, genuine shiver of relief. "Wait here," she said, and ducked back out into the storm before he could protest. A minute later, she returned from the restaurant's back door with a large paper cup of hot tea pilfered from the staff station. "Here. No lemon, I'm afraid." He took it, his cold fingers brushing hers. "You didn't have to do this." She shrugged, leaning against a workbench. "It's just tea." They didn't talk much. The roar of the storm was muted here, replaced by the quiet hum of a fluorescent light. She didn't ask who he was or what he did. He didn't ask why she was walking home in a snowstorm after midnight. The unasked questions hung between them, a comfortable truce. He was just a man in a bad spot. She was just a person who could fix a small part of it. After about 40 minutes, the bright yellow lights of a tow truck finally painted the garage walls. The driver gave a sharp honk. The man stood, unwinding the scarf. He handed it back to her, then reached for his wallet. "Please, let me thank you properly." Alyssa shook her head, stepping back. "No, really, just don't stand in the snow next time. Wear gloves." He smiled then, a real one that reached his eyes and softened his entire face. It transformed him. "Thank you. Really." He extended his hand. "Jasper." She shook it. "Alyssa." "Safe home, Alyssa." "You too, Jasper." She watched the truck haul the massive SUV away, its taillights fading into the white whirl. Then she wrapped the scarf back around her own neck, the wool now holding a stranger's warmth, and headed back into the storm. A strange peace settled over her. The act had been simple, human. It felt like the only real thing she'd done all day. She walked the long way to her bus stop, the world silent, but for her footsteps. She had no idea that the simple geometry of her kindness had just intersected with a life of staggering consequence. No idea that the man named Jasper was watching her figure recede from the tow truck's passenger seat, his expression thoughtful. And no idea, as she finally boarded a delayed, nearly empty bus, that her good deed had already set a chain of events in motion that would cost her everything by morning. The snow continued to fall, covering her tracks as if they had never been there at all. It was a clean, white, and terribly fragile piece. The calm before the shatter. The snow had not stopped. It fell in a relentless gray veil, turning the morning into a muted twilight. Alyssa's bus stalled twice, trapped in deepening drifts, each minute ticking past on her phone screen with the weight of a lead weight. She finally jumped off 3 blocks from the restaurant and ran, her cheap boots sliding on the pavement, lungs burning with the sharp, cold air. She arrived at Bistro Lumiere 10 minutes late, her heart hammering against her ribs. The lunch rush was already in full, chaotic swing. The air was thick with the smell of seared steak and anxious perfume. She hurried to the back, fumbling with her locker, only to find Gary waiting, arms crossed, his face a mask of cold disappointment. "Alyssa, my office, now!" The walk through the bustling dining room felt like a perp walk. Patrons glanced up, then quickly away, the way people do to avoid witnessing a crash. In the cramped office, he didn't let her sit. "You're late. Gary, the buses, the storm, they weren't—" "We had a conversation last night." His voice was flat, final. "No excuses. No stories. You were warned." "It was the weather," she pleaded, hearing the desperate edge in her own voice. "I couldn't control it." "Everyone else made it in," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the dining room. "You think the snow only fell on you? This is a business of reliability." He let out a short, weary sigh, as if she were an immense inconvenience. "Clock out. Hand in your apron." The world tilted. "You're firing me?" "We warned you," he said, and then, inexplicably, he walked out of the office and into the main dining area, forcing her to follow. Near the host stand, in full view of a dozen lunch tables, he stopped and turned. His voice rose, carrying a performative sternness. "Your shift is over, Alyssa. Please leave the premises." The clatter of cutlery died. Conversations hushed mid-sentence. A sea of faces turned toward her, curious, embarrassed, pitying. A well-dressed woman with a forkful of salad paused, her gaze darting between Alyssa and the manager. The silence was heavier than any shouting. Being fired publicly hurts in a specific way. It's a violation that stays quiet but sinks deep. A humiliation that strips you not just of a job, but of dignity. Heat flooded her cheeks. She saw the other waitstaff, Jenna from the night shift, Carlos from the kitchen, looking down at their shoes. She said nothing more. Arguing in this arena would only make her a greater spectacle. With hands that threatened to tremble, she untied her apron, the crisp black fabric now a symbol of everything she'd lost. She placed it on the host stand, gave a single, tight nod that was meant to be professional but felt like surrender, and turned. No one met her eyes as she walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft, definitive click, sealing her out. Outside, the snowflakes landed on her heated cheeks and eyelashes. She stood there for a full minute, stunned, the cold seeping through her jacket as the reality crashed down. No job, no backup plan. Rent due in 2 weeks. A hollow panic began to flutter in her chest. She started walking, aimlessly, with no bus to catch. She didn't notice the familiar black SUV, now clean and formidable, parked across the street. Its windows were tinted, betraying nothing. Inside, Jasper Hamilton watched her leave. He had come on an impulse, a detour between meetings. He'd wanted to see the restaurant in its daytime rhythm, but more, he'd wanted a name to go with the face from the storm. He'd watched her run up late and flustered. He'd seen Gary intercept her. Through the restaurant's large front windows, he'd witnessed the entire cruel staged theater of her dismissal. 37 years old, billionaire, founder of Hamilton Solutions, a logistics empire built on efficiency and ruthless precision, and the man whose frozen hands she had warmed. His expression, reflected in the dark glass, showed no anger. It was something colder, a profound recalculation. He saw the manager's puffed-up authority, the public shaming, the way his staff averted their eyes, a culture of fear, not excellence. He saw Alyssa's quiet dignity in the face of it. The contrast was stark, and it lit a fuse in his mind. He said nothing, made no move. He simply watched her disappear around the corner, a solitary figure swallowed by the falling snow. Then he glanced at his watch. By early afternoon, a nervous energy infested the restaurant. Whispers snaked through the kitchen and dining room. The regional manager had called Gary, voice tight. "The owner is coming. Today. Be ready." No one had seen Jasper Hamilton in years. He was a legend, a name on the business registry, a ghost in the machine. His impending arrival was treated like an audit from God. At exactly 1 p.m., as the lunch crowd thinned, the door opened. Jasper stepped inside, alone. Snow melted in the dark wool of his overcoat. He carried no briefcase, gave no greeting. His presence was a quiet vacuum that sucked all sound from the room. Conversations faded. A busboy stopped, a tray of dirty glasses held in midair. Gary hurried forward, his earlier sternness replaced by a smile stretched too thin. "Mr. Hamilton, sir, we weren't expecting you today. This is an honor." Jasper's eyes scanned the room, passing over the obsequious manager without interest. "Where is the waitress who worked the closing shift last night?" Gary blinked. Which one, sir?" "We had several." Dark hair. Calm demeanor. She assisted a guest in distress near the property after hours. Recognition and a flicker of unease crossed Gary's face. "Oh, you mean Alyssa Moore?" He cleared his throat, falling back on the script. "She was let go this morning, I'm afraid. Repeated lateness, unreliable. We have standards to maintain." The silence that followed was profound, charged like the air before a lightning strike. Jasper held the manager's gaze until the man's smile wilted completely. Then Jasper nodded once. His voice was calm, clear, and cut through the silent room like a blade. "Call her back." Gary paled. "Sir?" "Now, get her on the phone. Tell her to return. Immediately." The chapter ends with the words hanging in the dead air, a command that unraveled every assumption in the room. The punishment was over. The reckoning had just begun. The phone call had been a disorienting jolt. Gary's voice, strained and oddly formal, telling her to return immediately for a urgent personnel matter. Alyssa had almost refused, the humiliation still raw, but a sliver of desperate, foolish hope that they'd realized their mistake made her turn her weary steps back toward the restaurant. 20 minutes after Jasper Hamilton's command, she pushed through the heavy door again. The atmosphere was frozen, not with cold, but with a breathless, electric tension. Every employee was rigidly in place, pretending to work. Gary stood near the host stand, ashen, and then she saw the man beside him. Recognition was a physical shock, a sudden dizzying lurch in her stomach. The sharp, intelligent face from the storm, now clean-shaven and composed, framed by the austere elegance of the dining room. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw a quiet acknowledgement that confirmed everything. "You," she breathed, the word barely audible. Jasper's slight smile was both an apology and a promise. "Me." He turned to address the room, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Last night, during the storm, my car was stranded in the snow just outside. I was freezing, helpless. This woman," he gestured to Alyssa, "saw me, a stranger. She broke her own journey home to offer me shelter, warmth, and kindness. She asked for nothing. She expected nothing." He paused, letting the image settle. "Her name is Alyssa Moore." He turned his gaze to Gary, who seemed to shrink under its weight. "This morning, I witnessed you publicly terminate her employment for lateness. Lateness caused by the same storm on the same day she demonstrated a level of character and compassion this establishment should aspire to embody." Gary opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "This restaurant," Jasper continued, his tone leaving no room for debate, "does not prosper by punishing integrity. It thrives by rewarding it." He looked back at Alyssa, his expression softening imperceptibly. "Alyssa, you are not fired. You are promoted. Effective immediately, you are the assistant operations supervisor for this location." The room erupted in a collective gasped whisper. Jenna's hand flew to her mouth. Carlos from the kitchen stared wide-eyed. Alyssa stood frozen, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The world had flipped on its axis. I don't understand," she stammered. "You don't have to. Yet," Jasper said. Then, to the room, She will receive full benefits and a salary review. She will learn this business from the ground up. Finally, he delivered the finishing blow, his eyes locking on Gary. And you, Mr. Ellis, will report to her. Your continued employment will be contingent on your ability to support her transition effectively. It was a demotion of devastating silent force. There was no shouting, no dramatic firing, just a brutal public realignment of power. Gary's face drained of its last vestige of color. He gave a stiff, defeated nod. "Thank you," Alyssa said to Jasper, her voice thick with a turmoil of emotions, gratitude, shock, terror. "Don't thank me," he replied quietly for her alone. "You earned this. Now prove them all wrong." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Alyssa moved through a haze of adrenaline and determination. She arrived first, left last. She pored over supply logs, vendor contracts, and staff schedules, documents that had once been hieroglyphics. She asked questions, listened, took notes. Jasper had arranged for a corporate trainer to work with her twice a week. Slowly, things began to improve. Morale among the front-of-house staff, who had witnessed her injustice and vindication, noticeably lifted. Service became smoother. Customer compliments, once rare, began to trickle in. Alyssa found a knack for anticipating problems, for calming frazzled servers. She was fair, but she was learning to be firm. But beneath the surface of false calm, a new tension festered. Gary performed his duties with a cold, mechanical precision, his resentment a barely contained frost. He answered her questions curtly, provided reports just shy of the deadline. Then, the small disturbances began. First, it was a case of premium Pinot Noir missing from the incoming inventory, signed off on a log she had reviewed. Alyssa was certain it had been on the list. Then a scheduled deep clean of the walk-in freezer was mysteriously omitted from the maintenance roster, leading to a minor health inspector note. Whispers started, subtle and venomous. "She's in over her head. Book smarts, no real experience. Things were smoother before." Doubt, like a creeping vine, began to curl around her newfound confidence. She saw the sidelong glances from a couple of the veteran cooks who were friendly with Gary. She felt the narrative being constructed, the promoted waitress who was crumbling under pressure. Alyssa didn't argue. She didn't confront Gary. Instead, she started a private log on her phone, noting every discrepancy, every oddly timed error, every conversation that felt deliberately misleading. She double-checked every invoice, took time-stamped photos of delivery slips, and quietly cross-referenced schedules. One afternoon, Jasper visited. He didn't announce himself, simply observing from a corner booth. He saw Alyssa calmly handle an irate customer about a misplaced reservation. He also saw Gary watching her from the shadow of the pass-through, his expression unreadable. Later, when Jasper reviewed the weekly operational reports Alyssa had begun emailing him, he noted her meticulous appendices pointing out ongoing inventory reconciliation issues. He said nothing to her, but his own, far more powerful systems began to turn. He requested automated audit trails for the inventory software. He asked for access logs for the scheduling system. The surface of the restaurant was a portrait of hard-won progress, but underneath, a silent war was being waged with spreadsheets and signatures. Alyssa's promotion had been the first justice. The battle to keep it was just beginning, and the evidence of sabotage was mounting, line by invisible line. The sabotage escalated. A week after the freezer incident, a supplier called about an unpaid, overdue invoice Alyssa had never seen. The following day, the schedule was published with 2 servers double-booked and another omitted entirely, triggering a near mutiny. Each incident was meticulously crafted to appear as her oversight. A missed email, a clerical error, a failure of leadership. Alyssa felt the noose of doubt tightening. The staff whispers grew louder, less subtle, yet she held her composure. Her private log became a fortress of facts, dates, times, screenshot records of altered digital documents, even a voice memo of a terse, gaslighting exchange with Gary, where he claimed to have already explained a procedure he'd never mentioned. She worked harder, her days bleeding into nights, determined that her performance would outshine the shadow being cast over her. Jasper watched from a distance, a silent sentinel. He received her detailed, unemotional weekly reports where she noted the discrepancies without accusation. Her discipline impressed him. He initiated nothing, said nothing, but his own quiet investigation began. He had his head of security pull camera archives for the office and back hallway. He commissioned an external audit of the last quarter's inventory and financials. He requested system logs tracking every login and edit made to the restaurant's scheduling and inventory software in the past 90 days. The truth, once sought by someone with his resources, surfaced with brutal, impersonal speed. 6 weeks after her promotion, Jasper called a mandatory all-staff meeting for a Tuesday evening, just after close. The air in the dining room was thick with nervous speculation. Alyssa stood to the side, her stomach a knot of anxiety. Gary stood near the front, projecting a weary, put-upon confidence. Jasper entered holding a slim tablet. He dispensed with greetings. Over the past month, this location has experienced a series of operational failures, he began. His voice neutral, factual, missing inventory, scheduling errors, financial irregularities. The narrative suggested a failure in new leadership. He tapped the tablet, and the large wall-mounted screen used for private events flickered to life. It showed a split view. On one side, a secure login log, on the other, time-stamped security footage. The inventory software shows a login from manager Gary Ellis's credentials at 11:03 p.m. on October 12th, Jasper stated. The footage showed Gary, alone in the office after close, at the computer at that exact time. The audit trail shows a deletion of a line item for one case of Domaine Serene Pinot Noir from that night's received order. A soft gasp rippled through the room. Gary's posture stiffened. Jasper advanced the slides. A spreadsheet appeared. The omitted freezer cleaning. The work order was created and approved by Alyssa Moore on October 8th. Footage showed Alyssa placing the signed order in the manager's inbox. The system log shows the order was deleted by the same credentials on October 9th. The camera shows Mr. Ellis removing a paper slip from that inbox and shredding it later that day. Slide after slide, a forensic dismantling. The altered server schedule, edited after Alyssa's final approval. The fake supplier invoice, created on the office printer captured on camera. The evidence was irrefutable, a digital and visual hammer. Jasper finally turned off the screen. The silence was absolute. He looked at Gary, not with anger, but with the cold disappointment of a scientist observing a failed experiment. "You systematically sabotaged a member of your team," Jasper said, his words measured and final. "You betrayed the trust of this business and attempted to destroy the reputation of someone who demonstrated more integrity in one night than you have in years. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. You will be escorted out. Security will supervise you collecting personal items." There was no yelling, no pleading, no dramatic scene. Just the quiet, absolute application of truth. Two security personnel Jasper had brought stepped forward. Gary, his face a mask of shattered pride, said nothing. He simply turned and walked out between them, the eyes of every staff member following him, no longer with pity, as they had for Alyssa, but with a cold, collective judgment. The door clicked shut. The storm of lies was over. 6 months later, Bistro Lumiere was unrecognizable. The air hummed not with anxiety but with focused energy. Staff laughed openly, worked collaboratively. Customer satisfaction scores had soared. The culture, once brittle and fearful, had been rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect and clear accountability. Alyssa, now fully confident in her role as operations supervisor, had not just filled the void Gary left, she had erased it, creating new systems, mentorship programs, and a genuine sense of team. One quiet evening, as the first gentle snow of a new season began to fall outside, Jasper knocked on the frame of her open office door. She looked up from a vendor contract, a smile coming easily to her face. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Always." He entered and sat, sliding a simple folder across her desk. "I've been reviewing the year-end numbers. This location's profitability is up 32%. Employee retention is at a company high. That doesn't happen by accident." Puzzled, Alyssa opened the folder. Her breath caught. The header read, "Partnership Agreement." The terms outlined her acquiring a 20% ownership stake in Bistro Lumiere. She looked up, stunned. "Jasper, I can't accept this. This is too much." He shook his head. "I don't reward charity, Alyssa. I reward character, intelligence, and results. You've shown an abundance of all three. This isn't a gift. It's an investment. In you." Tears pricked her eyes, but they were of pride, not pain. She looked through the glass wall of her office at the restaurant floor below, alive with warm light, the soft clink of glasses, the easy movement of her team. Outside, the snow fell peacefully, covering the world in a clean, hopeful white. "Some storms break you," Jasper said quietly, following her gaze. "Others show you who you are." Alyssa turned the contract toward her, picking up a pen. Her hand was steady. She looked back at the dining room, then at the man who had seen her value when she was just a waitress in the snow. "And who's been watching all along," she finished, her voice clear and sure. She signed her name with a flourish, the final stroke of a story that had begun with a simple act of kindness and had returned to her, multiplied beyond her wildest dreams. "Thank you for sharing this story with me. As the Christmas lights twinkle, remember, your subscription isn't just a click. It's a bell that rings out, telling me to keep writing for you. Don't let the magic end here. Subscribe, and let's journey into the new year together."